Welcome to Module 2. Okay, so this week we are going to introduce animatics, and you're working on your storyboards. You'll be submitting those on Sunday, and what I want to do is give you an idea of what's coming up in terms of the animatic and how the storyboard is going to roll directly into the animatic assignment. So you can look ahead and get a better bearing as to where you're headed with your storyboards. Now we're going to start with the core reading and then move forward throughout this module. So this week you're going to be reading Chapter 6, Animating Layers, and Chapter 7, Working with the Masks. So please keep up and do all the assignments. It's going to take possibly a little bit more than an hour for these. Working with masks, if you're not as familiar with the masking process or setting up paths in Photoshop or Illustrator, this might take you a little bit more time. So please budget that time into your schedule. Going on, the supplemental materials. So here there's going to be considerable supplemental materials this week. How to create an animatic. This is just a written lesson of sorts that can guide you through. I'm going to give you my own video lesson in the lecture, and it is pretty parallel to this. So we'll cover a little bit more about that later, but read through this and make sure you understand what's being covered. You can also use it as a reference to guide yourself back without having to go through the videos again. Also, the principles of animation, and this is a motion graphics focus of this. Now, the principles of animation take your motion graphics and bring them to life. This is incredibly important to understand overall. So I'm going to quickly open this up, and you're going to see it comes from The Illusion of Life. This was created by a set of Disney animators, and again, this is less character focused. The idea behind The Illusion of Life, the book that Frank Thomas and Ollie Johnson created decades ago, was really focused towards character animation. But these principles adapt very well into any kind of motion graphics. Bring to life the motion of a simple grouping of text can very much enhance your animations. And I want you to get a better idea of what these principles are as you're building your storyboard and start to integrate them into your storyboards. So go through, there are video examples of each of these, and try to pick out parts that really you can start to reflect in your own design. So you might say, oh, well, around say 42 seconds to a minute one or minute two, you might decide, well, that's a great piece to integrate into my overall idea. So pick and choose. I'm going to go back to the idea. Pablo Picasso said, good artists borrow, great artists steal. Take the ideas and the way they're using them in here and apply them to your own work. In the end, it's going to be your own work. It's not plagiarism to borrow ideas, and in fact, it's a great way to learn. So you're piecing these together in an entirely unique way, and by all means, use this as a form of inspiration. So again, we get all the way down, and each of these has an example. So take some time and really focus and use this as a reference to go back to while you're creating your storyboards as well as your animatics. There are some supplemental videos. So here it's really going to be talking, it's 15 minutes, and it's going to be talking about a pretty simple way to create animatics from your storyboards and the general ideas. Now, when you're creating an animatic, really the core idea for this class is you're developing timing. So we'll talk about techniques for accomplishing that in the lecture series this week. Also, down below we have a professional animatic done for the movie Ant-Man. And I want to explain a couple things here. They use several advanced techniques in creating this animatic from the storyboards. They literally separate out much of the drawing. So the background will be one layer, then there'll be a midground, then there'll be foreground. Usually the characters will be in the foreground. They even go so far in certain areas as to do thumbnail sketches of the characters in animated form. That's not what I'm expecting. And you'll see that again as I go through the lectures and the example for the animatic assignment. I want to touch base on the storyboard again. So we covered this in the last module, and there are 3 core parts to it. But I want to talk about submission because I don't want anyone losing points on submitting their work. You've worked very hard on this project, and suddenly you realize, oh, I didn't submit it right, and you're at a 50% for the project. One of the conditions that I have to work through is when I have 50 people in a class and going through all of this material, that takes a considerable amount of time. And if things aren't organized in a structured fashion, I've literally added 6 to 10-fold the amount of work that I'll have to do, or my grader will have to do, to cleanly and clearly evaluate your work. So please follow the submission rules religiously, and if you have questions, please ask ahead of time. And also note that if you're missing one part of this is a 3-part assignment, so if you're missing one part of the assignment, you're going to lose 10 points for that part. And then also take note of the rubric. Use this as a guide to get a good score. So we're really focused on your visual storytelling ability, and you can see that has the most weight over here. These other rubric indicators are really supplemental to your ability to tell an effective story visually. And I, again, want to remind you, this is not a drawing class. I don't expect fantastic drawings. You are not to be drawing inside of Photoshop or Illustrator. You are to be drawing with pencil and paper outside the computer and then scan these. And the reason is it's going to be exponentially quicker for you. Now you might decide to do some extra drawings for the animatic, and I'll talk about that in the later lesson. So take again another look at the submission requirements for the storyboard. And I'm going to talk about this a little bit more in terms of the animatic assignment itself. It's a 50-point assignment, and you're going to want to use the folder structure directory that I discuss in my lecture series this week. You can download it here, and you'll know by then through the lecture series what this is about. So it's, again, fundamental that you follow this folder structure and organize your assets into the folder structure as I'm requiring it. Again, this is going to save 5 to 10-fold time requirements to actually evaluate the work. And it's going to prevent you from making mistakes. So again, more on that in the lecture series. Go through it. Make sure you understand everything before you begin. And now I'll get back into the core of our modules lecture this week.